Hello everyone, welcome to the first section of this course. In this section, we're going to be taking an overview of the application that we're going to be building. We're going to be setting up our Flutter project, installing all of the required dependencies, setting up the config file that is going to hold all of the sensitive data for our application, and we are going to be going to the actual API website and generating an API key for us and actually understanding what the actual structure of our application is going to be. So with that, I'm going to end this video here, and I'm going to see you guys in the next lecture where we're going to be actually taking a look at the application that we're going to be building. In this lecture, we're going to be taking a quick overview over the application that we're going to be building. And after that, I'm going to be showing you the actual website from where we're going to be pulling all of the data that's being displayed here. So without anything further to do, let's get into it. So before getting started, I'm going to tell you that this application that we're going to be building is going to have a single page. And this page is going to be responsible for showing us some results of a list of movies that we're going to be pulling dependent upon the various criteria that we have. So what are these various criteria? Well, first is going to be the criteria that we can search for movies that might have a keyword in their title. So I'm going to search for Wonder, for example. And if I click on enter, you're going to see that it's going to pull the API, and it's going to pull up a result of all of the movies that have the name or the word Wonder in their title. And it's going to provide us a list of that, as you can see. The second thing that we're going to have is that we're going to have a category-based system of pulling down movies, and that is going to be two categories actually, which is going to be all of the movies that are currently popular. So if I click on this multi drop down and click on popular, you're going to see that it's going to return a result of all of the popular movies that are currently being shown. And then if I click on upcoming, it's going to show me all of the upcoming movies that are bound for release. Another cool feature that our application is going to have is that we are going to have pagination built into our application. So if I scroll through the end of the list, it's going to pull down more results. So if I go to the end, it's going to pull down more results, and it'll keep doing that. Apart from this, we're going to have one other essential feature, that is going to be updating the UI dynamically. And the way we're going to do that is when somebody clicks on one of the movies, it's going to change the background at the back. So if I click on Godzilla vs. Kong, it does that. Breach, it just changes that. Little things, it changes it again. So that's something that we're going to be doing as well. To achieve all of this functionality, we're going to be using the REST API that is going to be provided to us by this website, which is called themoviedb.org. And to get information regarding the actual API, you can go to developers.themoviedb.org. I'm going to be introducing this website in later sections, and we'll revisit this quite often to actually see all of the different information that we required for pulling the different data that we required from the API. So now that we have a quick overview of the application that we're going to be building, now that we've had a thorough overview over the application that we're going to be building, I think it's prime time for us to actually begin the application development process. So to get started, what we'll do is that we'll create our Flutter project in this video, and then we're going to also test to make sure that it actually builds and launches onto a mobile device. So without anything further to do, let's get into it. So the first thing I'm going to do is that I've already navigated to the folder where I'm inside of my system, where I'm going to be placing the actual source code. And once I'm inside of the specified folder, so for Mac users, you can use terminal to do the command that I'm going to be doing. And for Windows users, you can use the command prompt or PowerShell, making sure that you have the Flutter SDK installed, is to do Flutter create, followed by the name of the application, and I'll call this Flicked app. So just in a cool startup-y way, I'll just remove the E from the Flicked and kind of name it like something more amazing than Flicked, I guess. And once this is done, what you're going to do is that Flutter is going to go through the process, create the application for you, and then it's going to give you the instructions for how to run the application. We're not going to follow these. The first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you the version of Flutter that I'm running. So if you're having any kind of issues while coding along with me, you can actually at least rule out the fact that maybe the different Flutter versions might be an issue. So yeah, I'm on Flutter version 2.0.4 and on the stable channel. So now once this is done, the next thing I'm going to do is that I am going to open up the folder where I have created my Flutter application. I'm going to copy it over into my code editor of choice, slash like lightweight IDE in this case even, and that's going to be Visual Studio Code. Now, before we can actually take a look at what we need to do with our actual Flutter project, what I'd like to highlight if you want the VS Code IDE to have like some kind of different tools so that will help you with Flutter related and Dart related development, I'll highly recommend that you go to the extensions panel and then install the official Dart code extension. And once that is done, just restart your IDE and then you should be good to go. With this, you'll have the ability to actually run the simulator, spin up different simulators and things like that. So now I'm going to stop my actual terminal because we don't need it anymore, and I'm going to click on this bottom left panel where it says Chrome. It might say something else for you, and this is the actual device that your Flutter application is going to spin up on once you click like the run button and then start debugging. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to select start an iOS simulator, and I'm going to wait for the simulator to spin up. And once the simulator actually shows up and is ready for me to actually start debugging on it, I'll resume the video. Okay everyone, so the simulator is up and running, and the last thing that we need to do is that we have to go here. We're going to click on the run in the top section, and we're going to click on start debugging, and from there I'm going to select Dart and Flutter for the environment type, and now we're just going to wait for the magic to happen. So you should see in your debug console it says launching the main.dart file on iPhone 12 or whatever simulator that you have. So that should be the name of the device that you're running the application on. And with this, I'm going to wait for the Xcode build process to done for the app to actually spin up on Flutter, and then I'll resume the video again. Okay, so now the actual application is running on the device and it's actually working. As you can see, I press the plus button and it does things. So now the final thing that I'd like to do is that I'd like to make sure that the actual hot reload functionality of Flutter works as well. So I'll go to the main.dart file, and inside of the actual Flutter demo title that we have for our material app, I'll replace that and I'll call this just Flutter. Do command save, and I'll also go down where it says the my home page and the title for the my home page, and I'll call this flicked, and hopefully that should change it. The actual title be displayed here on the top bar. So since that happens, I know that I've successfully set up my project and it's running on the simulator. So with that, actually going to be setting up our dependencies for our pubspec.yaml file, and these are the dependencies or the different packages that we're going to be using to actually develop our application. So there aren't a lot of packages that we will be using, namely there are just three. The first one that we are going to be using, and the place that we're going to be putting these packages to be installed is going to be under dependencies. Just be sure not to put them under dev dependencies, because then these dependencies won't be included in the actual release build for your Flutter application. So here, the first thing that we're going to be adding is going to be Flutter_riverpod. So that's the state management library that we're going to be using, and the version that I am going to be showing you guys is going to be 0.13.1. Once we have this, the next thing we're going to do is that we're going to add DO. So DO is going to be the HTTP client that we're going to be using to actually send the different HTTP requests to our actual API. And then finally, we'll have getIt, which is going to be a package which is going to allow us to actually access singleton instances for different classes that we have defined inside of our application. And we're going to have the version 6.0.0 for it. So with this, I'm going to do command save, and hopefully the Dart extension should recognize it and do Flutter pub get automatically. But if you for some reason don't get that, just go to terminal inside of the folder where you have the actual pubspec.yaml file and do Flutter pub get, and that should produce the same results. So once we have this, the next thing we can do is that we can go to our actual main top level folder, and here we're going to create a new folder, and we're going to call this folder assets. And inside of this assets folder, for now, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create two new folders. The first one is going to be a folder called config, and this is going to hold all of the config files that relate to our application, and this is where we're going to kind of keep all of the sensitive data that's inside of our application separate from the application code, so that when we actually push our changes to a Git repository or things like that, we can exclude this specific file and not let public eyes actually pry on secrets that we want to include inside of our application. And besides that, what we're going to do is that we're going to create a new folder, and that folder is going to be images. So as the name suggests, we're just going to be keeping some static images in here, which we might be using through the application development. And for our case, we're going to be having only one image that is going to be the actual image that's shown on our actual splash screen for the application. So inside of the config folder, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a new folder or a new file, and the file inside of the config is going to be called new main.json. So I'm going to do new file, and I'm called main.json. Inside of our main.json file, we're going to have 3 new keys, and these keys are going to be API_key. So this is going to be the actual API key that we require to interact with our API. I'm going to leave it empty for now, and we'll fill it later on. The next is going to be our base_API_URL, and this is also going to be empty for now. We can fill it for now, but I'll actually show you the location where you can get this from. And then finally, the last thing we're going to have is going to be base image API URL, and this is also going to be empty for now, and we can do command save. Now the last thing we need to do is that we have to go to our pubspec.yaml file, and inside of our pubspec.yaml file, we have to actually tell Flutter to actually load the asset folder in and actually make the files available to the actual Flutter application. So to do that, we'll go down to where we have this assets section. We'll alt comment it by doing command / / and from there, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to change the first import to be assets/config /. So this means everything under the config folder. And with this, I'm going to do assets/images. So everything under the images folder, include that as well. I'm going to do command save. I'm going to rebuild our Flutter project by doing restart to make sure that everything spins up and I can see that the app still runs. So with that, we've successfully set up the dependencies for our Flutter application. In the next video, we're going to be actually going to the actual MovieDB website to actually obtain our API key. And I'll also show you from where we can actually get our base API URL and base image API URL as well. So with that, thank you for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one.